All right, I'm going to read from Chapter 2, Banjos in Babylon, Prehistory of the Jam. Gak's belly was full. He leaned back against the cave wall and belched contentedly. It had been a good hunt. Oog, Gak's cousin, tossed the remnants of his ostrich leg into the fire and reached for his thumping stick. There was nothing he loved more than sitting back after a feast and getting a groove going with the old thumping stick. With a grunt, he rolled a log close and began thumping. Crack, crack, thud. Crack, crack, thud. Crack, crack, thud. Gak looked up and grinned toothily from across the cave. Umga? He queried. He always liked it when Oog got a good thump going. Grabbing his own thumping stick, a lovingly chewed oak branch, he chimed in on a boulder next to Oog. Somewhere in the distance, a pterodactyl screamed. Gak and Oog's shadows flickered on the stone walls behind them, and their thumping echoed out of the cave and over the tops of the giant ferns up towards the orange moon. Crack, thud, crack, crack, thud. The pounding grew louder and faster. Their eyes shut in concentration, furry foreheads beaded with sweat. The cavemen were oblivious to everything but the pounding beat of their thumping sticks. They were jamming. This was, of course, before the time of Barg the Builder. Barg was an innovative caveman from the next cave hood over and was always fashioning things from stuff like skin and bone and stumps. Most of the other cavemen considered him a few boar teeth shy of a full necklace, and they were fond of grunting behind his back. But then one day, Barg came up with his modified stump idea. He had hollowed out the stump and strapped skin over the top of it. It made an awesome boom when he hit it with his thumping stick, and it was a game changer for the cave jams. Now all the cool cave jammers had to have one of Barg's thumping stumps. It wasn't enough anymore to whack your stick on a regular stump, and it wasn't loud enough either. You either had your own thumping stump or you wish you did. Pretty soon it was no secret, and everyone was making them, and they kept getting better. Thumping stumps were decorated with tribal patterns and mammoth blood, and carved with the symbols of their builders. There were smaller ones for higher sounds, and huge ones for making big, boomy thumps, and the cave jams were becoming groovier with all the new sounds from better thumpers. And of course, it was only a matter of time before some upstart cave entrepreneur combined the thumping stump with a bowstring, and presto, the prehistoric guitar was born. The Cro-Magnon music scene had just evolved from jamming level 1 to level 2, or from rhythm to pitch, and the world would never be the same. Fast forward 10,000 years. A sway-backed hippie school bus is parked beside the Sacramento River, blending in with the valley oaks and wild grapes. Several ragged little kids scuttle around in the undergrowth, foraging for roots and berries. Emerging from the bus, a hippie elder waddles down to the river to bathe. The morning sun sparkles and glitters on the water, and the smell of incense mixes with swamp grass. It was a good day. I was there. I was the one with the funny hat, sitting in a field with a notepad and gazing off into space. The eldest of 6 wild hippie kids, I was writing lyrics and humming melodies for as long as I can remember. All of us took to one talent or another, largely because the only other option was, well, foraging for roots and berries. Being homeschooled and raised on a bus, we didn't have a lot of typical socializing. We made up for it with imagination and music. Although at the time I felt like a freak, looking back now I wouldn't trade it for the world because I did nothing but music. My first musical memory was being dragged along by the hand through an outdoor market and passing by a string band with a loud and twangy banjo. We stopped for a few minutes, and I felt the notes bouncing off of my eardrums like hail. I didn't know what it was, but I did know one thing. It was the coolest sound in the world. I guess I wouldn't shut up about it because a few weeks later, my dad brought home a decrepit old banjo from the pawn shop. It was missing 2 strings and a bridge, but I had a blast banging away on the drumhead like a bongo and grinning like an idiot. It was my thumping stick. After a while, I got bored of playing it like a drum and asked my dad for some strings. He told me to go look for some. But Dad, I whined, where am I going to find strings? Dad muttered something cosmic and tugged his beard. Go look, son. They're out there somewhere. He turned back to his book, a tattered copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I guessed by his body language that we were done with the conversation, as he was now lighting incense and reciting something in Sanskrit. Fine, I'll go look for banjo strings in the middle of the forest, Dad, I mumbled, and headed out into the woods. Using my feral hippie kid instincts, I headed toward the river, as that was where I usually found anything useful. This particular river happened to be more of a muddy drainage ditch called Jack's Slough, and was inhabited primarily by hobos, fishermen, and junkies. After passing several hobo nests, I encountered a gaggle of drunken rednecks attempting to fish. They were in a tree trying to rescue their snagged lines, and I watched them injure themselves for a few minutes before it hit me like a bolt from the blue. I would string my banjo with fishing line. Just as necessity is the mother of invention, the desire to jam is the mother of all things musical. From Gak's thumping stump to my pawn shop banjo, throughout the ages we have fashioned objects of musical delight. So the jamming may continue. Jam on.